Alright, it's Mr. Gillum, and today we are going to solve by factoring. And before we learn about factoring, really, what we're going to do today is just basic trinomials, where there's not going to be any number in front of the x squared, okay? There's just going to be numbers in front of the x, and there's probably going to be a number out on the back without a variable on it, okay? So for today, there won't be any number here, okay? However, there will be a number here and a number here. I'm sure you've factored before in the past. So what you're going to do is you're going to find two numbers that multiply to equal c, but they have to add up to b. So whatever number's in the very end, without a variable on it, two of the factors have to add up to b. Okay. You're going to start with two parentheses. Okay, you're going to put them together like so. All right. And whatever two numbers that fit the pattern, okay, put your x in front, they're going to go right here. Whatever the two numbers are that add up to the right ones, okay? If there's a number in front of x squared, for today especially, okay, if you ever see that number in front of x squared, make sure you factor out that number first, okay? And I call that a mono out, all right? But you'll see a few of those as we go on, okay? Do examples of all of them, all right? And so let's just factor here, okay? And we might be a little rusty, that's all right, okay? Just to remind you, we're finding two numbers that multiply to get 18 and add up to -3. So let's just write out the factors of 18. I have 1, 18, positive or negative, 2, 9, 3, 6, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's all of them. So these are my choices. Okay. I don't think 1 and 18 are going to add up to -3. I don't think 2 and 9 are going to add up to 3. However, I do think 3 and 6 will probably add up to 3. Now, remember, you have to multiply by one positive and one negative to get your -18. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by 3 times -6. I know that equals -18. I know that 3 plus -6 is also going to equal -3. So to factor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my two parentheses. Because I have x squared in the front, okay, I'm going to put x at the beginning of both of them because I know eventually x times x will equal x squared. And in the back, I'm going to put a +3. I'm going to put a -6. Okay, and I've factored the expression. If you're ever not sure if you factored it correctly, you can always FOIL it out. So you can take x times x is x squared, x times -6 is -6x, plus 3x minus 18. And as you can see, we did get x squared minus 3x minus 18. Okay, factoring is the opposite of FOILing. So let's take a look here again. Okay, this time I want two numbers that multiply to get 63 and add up to +2. Okay, -63 and add up to +2. So I know my factors pretty well. However, if you don't know all yours, you can always write them out. 1 times 63, 2, 3 times 21, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 times 9, and then 8, and then I get back to 9 again. So these are all the factors of 63, okay? I have to use these numbers as pairs, all right? 1 times 63 is not going to add up to 2, okay? 3 times 21 will multiply to get 63, but it's not going to add up to 2. So I'm going to pick 7 times 9. Now, one of these numbers has to be negative because my product, my 7 times 9, has to be a -63. So I'm going to go ahead and choose +9 and -7. I'm going to say 9 times -7 equals -63, and 9 plus -7 equals +2. So in this case, I have r squared in front, so I'm going to go ahead and start with my two parentheses. I know r times r will take care of the r squared. And now I have a +9 and a -7. All right. And if you're not convinced that you factored it correctly, you can always FOIL it out. All right. Sometimes you're going to get some that don't factor. All right. So this would be my factored solution. And this will be my factored solution, okay? On this one, let's take a look very carefully. Once again, I'm trying to find two numbers that multiply to get 9, add up to -3. I know the factors of 9 are 1 times 9 or 3 times 3. I know I can't add 1 and 9 to get to -3, and I know I can't add 3 and 3 to get to -3, so I know this must not be factorable. One more time, it is not factorable because neither 3 and 3 or 1 and 9 will add up to -3. So it's not factorable. Okay. Now, if you run into a problem where there's a number in front of x squared, okay, like this 2, always think to mono out first, or try to mono out first whenever you can, okay? For today, you should always be able to mono out first. Take that number out, okay? And kind of like the opposite of the distributive property, if I take a 2 out of the x squared, I also have to take a 2 out of the 10 and a 2 out of the negative 28. All right, and so now I have this new expression where if I distributed it, 2x squared plus 10x minus 28, it's the same thing. However, now I can factor this much easier. So I'm just going to carry down my 2, and I'm going to factor what's inside the parentheses. Okay, I'm thinking of two numbers that multiply to get negative 14 and add up to positive 5. I know my factors of 14 are 1 times 14, 2 times 7, and those are all of them. So I don't think 1 and 14 are going to add up to 5. However, I can make 2 and 7 add up to 5 if I have a negative 2 times positive 7. Negative 2 times positive 7 would be negative 14. Negative 2 plus 7 would be positive 5. So I'm going to go ahead and start my next two parentheses here. I'm going to start with x in the front. That'll take care of the x squared. And then I have a negative 2 and a positive 7. All right. It's not very clear. Negative 2, positive 7. All right. And so whenever you see that first number out there in front of the x squared, always think to factor it first. If you don't, you will have a messed up answer, and when you FOIL, it won't work. All right. So let's look at this last one here. Once again, I have a number in front of x squared. It's 3. So I'm going to go ahead and mono that out. Okay. And if I take a 3 out of the first term, I also need to take 3 out of the second term and 3 out of the last term. Okay, and if I distributed it, okay, it would give me the same thing, 3x squared minus 30x plus 75. So now I'm thinking of two numbers that multiply to get 25 and add up to negative 10. My factors of 25 are 1 times 25 or 5 times 5, and that's all of them. Okay, I know 1 and 25 will never add up to 10. Okay, however, I need to equal a positive 25, but the sum has to be a negative answer. So what I can do is this. I can say negative 5 times negative 5 must equal positive 25. Negative 5 plus negative 5 does equal negative 10, so that's what I'm going to go with. All right, I'm going to bring my 3 down, and I'm going to start my two parentheses here. I'm going to have x in the first part of them because of my x squared, and then I know that negative 5 multiply to get positive 25 and add to negative 10, so I'm just going to go ahead and put x minus 5, x minus 5. Okay, and if you go above and beyond, really this is just saying 3 times x minus 5 quantity squared. Okay, and that goes for any two numbers when you multiply them. 3 times 3, that's the same as 3 squared. X times x, that's the same as x squared. X minus 1 times x minus 1, same idea. X minus 1 squared. In this case, it would just happen to be an x minus 5.